We're back. Fantasy Football Factory pod. Got myself, Stephen Cheah, Mintzy, the king of the South.
You tell him.
Back. We got Moody behind the sticks.
What's up, boys? Appreciate y'all letting me join you.
Of course. We're going to do our preview episodes. We've done these every year the past couple of years. We're going to preview each position. We're going to do quarterbacks tonight. Not kickers, obviously. Get kickers out of the league. Quarterbacks. Running backs will be coming next week, and then we got receivers, tight end, mushed into one. And we'll be continuing this weekly on Thursdays throughout the NFL season, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah, and also just shout out to DraftKings because we've got a new look with the Fantasy Football Factory pod. We're going with the DFS angle, and DraftKings is the only home for DFS. And we're going to be entering our teams into the huge competitions that they have, like a couple that are a couple people win $1 million this season. And so we're going to be going more of a DFS route, and we love our partnership with DK. We're DK partners, and I think that opens up a whole new avenue for the FFF pod.
Yeah, I think we're going to be working with Pardon My Take, actually, with their DFS contest, so we'll be in it weekly, which is going to be pretty cool. And Stoolies can join too, which is going to be a huge win for everybody. But this episode is about the quarterbacks, and there's been one guy who's been the top quarterback for a while. His name's Josh Allen. How do we feel about him as far as a potential another year atop the QB throne with his guys, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis also gone?
You see, I think rumors of his demise are greatly exaggerated here because on the surface, a lot to get into. First of all, Stephon Diggs obviously gone, been one of the leading receivers in the NFL the last few years, but kind of felt like he was slipping a little bit last year. And I don't know if there's some, you'd always see him blowing up on the sidelines with some chemistry stuff. He's just, he's kind of a hothead. And I think on the surface, when you look at the Bills right now, you're like, oh, they don't have Stephon Diggs, they don't have Davis. So this receiving core, you got Shakir, who stepped up a little bit late last year. You got, Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, first pick of the second round in the NFL draft out of Florida State. You look at that and you're like, I don't know. The receivers don't look great, but they've got some tight ends. Dalton Kincaid's a stud.
They do.
Dawson Knox just signed a 3-year deal. You're going to be seeing 2 tight end sets. James Cook, good running back. I think, and also with Josh Allen, the biggest thing, his rushing value is what sets him apart.
Definitely.
And they're still going to score a ton of touchdowns. He gets a lot of rushing touchdowns in the red zone. And so I think we're dealing with a situation where on the surface, people are worried about this Diggs thing more than they should be.
Yeah, I mean, he's the part about Josh Allen is he's just so consistent. Every year he's like 43 to 4,500 passing yards, which is really good. 29 to 39 passing touchdowns, but his rushing yards is what kind of separates him. In each year, he's been between 421 and 763 rushing yards. And what I like about him is, with Jalen Hurts and everything, we've seen the evolution of the tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. Quarterbacks running the ball into the end zone. Josh Allen has averaged 7.5 rushing touchdowns in his career, per season in his career. But last year, 15. Do you think he can possibly maintain that? Or do you think he falls back to the 7.5 average is great? That's very, very good, and that should put him in that QB1 conversation. If he has 15 again, he's going to be at no doubt.
Yeah, I think 10 could happen. 15 is an extremely big amount, but when you look at the Bills, they score a lot of points, and Josh Allen's like their goal line running back, not James Cook.
Yeah.
And also one other thing about Josh Allen, obviously the one beef on him is the turnovers, and that gets you negative points in fantasy. I think there was a direct change when they fired Ken Dorsey last year because Dorsey would abandon the run and Josh Allen would be doing the free ball and stuff, and he was turning the ball over. Once Dorsey got in there, you saw more running game, more play action, less turnover stuff. So maybe it might hurt his passing yardage a little bit, but you're going to get less negative points, and I actually expect him to turn the ball over a good bit less this year with that play calling all year.
Is he still your QB1?
He is.
Same. Moody, is he your QB1?
I have him actually as QB2. I have him right behind Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a massive season. I just think there's going to be slight regression here for Josh Allen. He's not going to run for 15 touchdowns again, in my personal opinion. Does he go for 10, 12? Definitely. But 15 was an NFL record for a quarterback. I just don't think that's going to be sustainable. He did lose Stephon Diggs. I like Shakir. I think he's going to be a guy that really emerges this year and takes a step forward. So I like Josh Allen. I'm not trying to say Josh Allen's not going to be one of the top 2 quarterbacks out there, but I just think slight regression is inevitable for a guy that ran for 15 touchdowns last year and lost his most reliable receiver.
Okay. In 4-point passing touchdowns leagues, he was about 39 points ahead of QB2, which was Jalen Hurts. I think a big question this year is going to be, where does that QB2 fall? Mahomes has been a popular one. He's, obviously the name brand product. But I think Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson is kind of right around that range. Mahomes is in there as well. They're 2, 3, and 4 on ADP right now. Who do you like as your QB2, Mintzy? Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes?
I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson here because I like, small season stuff with Lamar. He beefed up the last couple of years to 230 pounds to take a pounding in the NFL to stay healthy with his frame. Well, he lost a little bit of his burst because he did that. He showed up at 205 this year, and I think he's going to be a better runner this year because he's going to be lighter and leaner. And I like, even though the AFC Championship play calling from Todd Monken was a total disaster. I don't know what you were doing when you could run the ball against KC and you turn Lamar into a drop back passer. The rest of the year, Monken was great. I was a big fan of that Monken hire. I loved what he did at Georgia, winning the national championship with Bennett, and I thought Monken was a great fit. You were on the Zay Flowers train last year before anybody, Cheah. Love the way they use him getting the ball.
Yep.
I think he's going to continue to emerge. Mark Andrews was not healthy last year. Hopefully he'll be healthier. And then I also think, Derrick Henry is a big upgrade over Gus Edwards and the combo and stuff.
Sure,
they've had.
Of course.
So I'm buying Lamar Jackson, and I'm buying the Ravens. Lamar has turned into a lot better passer than people realize the last few years. You always think of him because he's one of the most dynamic running quarterbacks in the history of the sport. But he's actually a really good passer, too. I like with Zay Flowers and Andrews, and I just think he's going to be quicker and busting more long runs at 205. I think that's a real thing.
Yeah. Moody, who do you like as your QB2?
QB2 is where I'd have Josh Allen.
Or is that, sorry.
Yeah, so that's where I've got him.
So
I've got Lamar Jackson. I just feel like the weapons around him are better. Andrews should be healthy once again. We know the rushing is always going to be there. He doesn't run for a lot of touchdowns, though. That's the one thing that worries me here, and especially whenever you add Derrick Henry in the backfield, the big, powerful runner that he is, you expect him to get a lot of goal line touches. But the threat of Derrick Henry being there in the run game is really going to open some things up for Lamar Jackson as well, I think. So I like Lamar Jackson to take a step forward. He's 27 years old. This feels like the prime for a running quarterback. His passing has taken a step forward. He's never going to be the best passer in the league. We know that. If you're going with Lamar Jackson, you're doing it because of his legs and hoping that he stays healthy. And if he does, I don't see any way he doesn't return top 3 value.
So here's my take on Lamar. I love Lamar. I started betting what I would call the Lamar lay, where I bet his over passing, over rushing, and over passing touchdowns a couple years ago. Probably the most fun player to manage in fantasy. That being said, he just doesn't play a full season. Last year he did. He played 16 of 17 games. He rested one of the games, obviously. They're so good. Health is a serious concern. I don't think we can just... The thing about fantasy in August is we're assuming full health for everyone. If we have full health for Lamar, he should absolutely be in that quarterback 1, 2, 3 conversation. No doubt about it. Last year he finished quarterback 4, totally fine. He sat one of those games, obviously, so he would have been right there at QB3 probably. I'm a little worried about him just as far as the weight and potential to miss games. So I actually have him as QB5.
Okay.
Not crazy. I have Jalen Hurts as QB3, Mahomes as QB4, and then QB2, I have Dak Prescott. This is a guy who finished QB3 last year, 351.8 points in 4-point passing touchdown leagues. They're going to be bad this year on defense. Mike Zimmer, I think, is a good coach. Dan Quinn had that defense humming. And their run game is... non-existent would be kind of a kind way to phrase it. Zeke, yuck. Rico Dowdle, okay. Tony Pollard is gone. This team is going to have to score points. I'm not really worried about CeeDee Lamb holding out right now for a contract. That's all going to get solved. He's going to be playing week 1. Not concerned about that. Dak Prescott, quarterback 2 for me.
Hot take there by Cheah, but I'm a Dak believer as well. When you look at the correlation on Dallas, when they play they score 38 a game at home. Those games in the Jerry world get wild. Mm-hmm. They really, it's like a noticeable thing. And I think a thing that I'll say on Dallas, everybody's always talking they have a CeeDee Lamb, all they have a CeeDee Lamb. I like Jake Ferguson. I thought he emerged last year. Yeah. I think Brandon Cooks kind of took a step back to form, especially toward the end of the year as he got more confident. I'm not as down on the rest of his weapons as the public.
I'm big on. He's gonna. Is he gonna be an MVP candidate? I don't think so. I don't think Dallas is gonna be good enough. I think he's gonna throw a lot of interceptions. Interceptions are, in most leagues -2 points. We can live with that. He's gonna throw the ball for a ton of yards, and he's gonna throw a ton of touchdowns. He's gonna be involved in a lot of high-scoring games. So Dak is a guy I absolutely love. For this year, obviously finished QB3 last year. I don't think putting him at QB2 is a crazy take, but that is much higher than industry right now. He is the 6th quarterback going in ADP.
Well, I want to mention the draft strategy thing with Dak. Like a lot of people might be burning earlier picks.
Yeah, you can get them.
And, you can sit back, stack up your running backs, receivers, get an elite tight end.
Yeah,
because Dak is going a few rounds later than those guys.
Absolutely. Speaking of those guys, we didn't really touch on Patrick Mahomes too much. Down season last year, he finished as QB8. Not something we would have expected, coming off like a 5,250 or 5,250 yard campaign. Did take a step back. He didn't even crack 4,200 yards last year, but he's consistently about 300 yards rushing a year. Where do you guys have Mahomes ranked, and do you think he bounces back this season? They obviously invested a little bit more in receivers. Xavier Worthy, big pick. Who knows what's going to happen with Rashee Rice at this point? But a little bit more. I think there's a little bit more momentum for for Mahomes to have a bigger season this year for a bounce back. But where do you guys have him ranked?
I've got him 3rd, but I do agree. Even having him 3rd, I'm not going to break the bank to try to get him, because I think you saw KC evolve as a football team last year, and their defense has gotten so much better. They've hit a lot in the draft. I also think they run the ball more with Pacheco, and then the weapons should be better this year. Xavier Worthy the upside is, he can fly. First-round pick. Hollywood Brown out 4 to 6 weeks already. They were hoping he'd make some noise. The receiving corps still, the Rashee Rice could get suspended. Maybe it's next year. He came on late. Travis Kelce's still probably the best tight end in the NFL. I don't think he's quite as explosive as he used to be. I still think he's really good. Mm-hmm. But I feel like with them having a good defense and a good running game, they're not stylistically going as wide open playing 45, 38 games as they used to. And I think Mahomes is still the best quarterback and player in the NFL, but I don't know if the overall situation is as good for fantasy as it used to be.
Yeah, Moody, where do you have?
Patrick Mahomes is the greatest player to ever touch a football, in my personal opinion, as far as the talent is concerned. He's just off the charts. He's got everything. I have him at quarterback 4, right behind the 3 big rushers up top.
Yep.
And I just think it makes a lot of sense. Look, Kelsey's been the man. The connection they've had for so long, it's there. He's always going to have a security blanket. Yeah, there's questions on the outside. What happens with Rashee Rice? If he gets suspended and misses, half the season, does that hurt Mahomes? Or do guys like Xavier Worthy step up, take on that role, and Mahomes makes them better? Because that's usually what he does, as long as they'll catch the damn football. That was the major problem last year. Mahomes probably would have had a much better season if dudes just caught the ball around him. Ton of drops early. I don't think that happens again this season. I see Mahomes returning to form.
So here's the issue if you take Patrick Mahomes early. You're going to feel great because, it's August or early September. We haven't played games yet. Patrick Mahomes is the name brand guy. You're going to be like, all right, I'm getting, 25 fantasy points a week from this guy. Should be fine. He finished at QB8 last year. He finished behind these guys. He finished behind Jordan Love by 36 points. He finished behind Brock Purdy by 12 points. He finished behind Jared Goff by 9 points. He was just over Tua by 10 points, and he was 10 points better than Baker Mayfield. So if you invest in early pick, if we're talking about, if this is a super flex league, quarterbacks are going to go, and he's your, could be your first round pick, that's fine. If you're in a single, in a 1 quarterback league, and you invest a second round pick in Patrick Mahomes, that's very dangerous because you're going QB early. You can get similar value based on how he finished last year, unless you think he's going to do for this huge bounce back. Even second round is way too early for Josh Allen for me. If he doesn't fully bounce back and is in that QB1, QB2 category, you are potentially tanking your season. So I would say buyer beware. I do like him. I have him as my quarterback 4, so it's not like I don't like the guy. But buyer beware on him early in 1 QB drafts.
Yeah, and also just to reiterate your point that I agree with, I'm looking at this list right now, and even in a 2 QB draft, there's 17 or 18 quarterbacks I'm comfortable with as a starter right now. The depth is so good, and like you said, the difference isn't that much. So I'm way inclined to sit back and wait on a mid-round guy and stack up my team with running backs and receivers.
Yeah.
Top.
Let's talk about one of those next guys. He's got a lot of steam. Shout out to Field Yates. This is his guy. And he's very popular. Anthony Richardson. Where do you have Anthony Richardson landing in your fantasy drafts? Is he one of those top of tier 2 level guys, or do you have him much farther down?
Okay, my thing with him, all right, and obviously this is because of the rushing value. Because a lot of standard fantasy league, 4-point passing touchdowns, 1 point every 25 passing yards.
Yep.
6-point rushing, 6 points, 6-point rushing touchdowns, and 1 point every 10 yards rushing. So the guys that can run, it's like a cheat code.
Yeah.
However, having said that, I've got him at number 10, which is a little lower than others. I know the upside. It almost reminds me of the Jalen Hurts argument I was so wrong about a few years ago. But the thing with Anthony Richardson, look, I believe he can run. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. He's on that turf in Indy. They should have a really good running game. I worry about his health. He got banged up week 2, and then he was out for the year week 4.
Yep.
If he is so reliant on running the ball, can he stay healthy a full season? And I just think the risk on his health is what scares me so much. I just don't know that he can stay on the field for a season. And the other thing with him, what's going to be interesting about him, he's going to have some crazy games where he runs for 120 and 2 touchdowns and throws for like 200 and a touchdown and wins games.
Yep.
But he also could have some games where he throws for 130 yards and has 20 yards rushing. Like, he's not, like, week to week, it's not going to be, like, he's either going to blow up or he's going to have some bad games. It's not going to be like a steady thing.
Yep.
And you combine that with the injury concerns. I do like him. I'm not saying I don't. I've got him at QB9 or QB10. But I'm just not comfortable taking him over guys like C.J. Stroud and Joe Burrow and people I know week to week I think will be more consistent, even if the upside's not the same.
So where do you have him ranked?
Who, Richardson? 10.
10, okay. Moody, where do you have Anthony Richardson?
I've got Richardson at 11, right outside of the top 10. I think he's one of the biggest question marks at quarterback, to be honest with you, because he could win you a league or he could get knocked out in week 2, kind of like we saw last year. He has now 3 concussions in his career. He had a couple at Florida, had one last year, had the shoulder as well. Injuries are going to be a concern. He's never going to be an elite passer. At least I don't think he's going to be an elite passer. If you're going to win, he's going to, it's going to be with the legs. And I just worry that he's going to take too many hits. Concussions are a concern for me. So I'm personally staying away from Anthony Richardson. But I could understand the upside there because of the rushing possibility.
Yeah. Let me tell you guys about a quarterback. I'll keep them nameless for the moment. Very brief career, in their first rookie season, dual threat quarterback, never passed for 225 yards or more. Never rushed for more than 60 yards. Is this a player that you would take as a top 10 quarterback?
I mean, I know this is like loaded the way you're saying it, but I mean, you would think not with those stats.
This is Anthony Richardson. His career high in passing is 223 yards. His career high in rushing is 56 yards. So I get it. The sample size is so small. What you want to do in fantasy to set yourself best up for success is limit risk. This is the riskiest guy in the draft because you have no idea what you're getting. Certainly, all the physical tools are there. He looks the part. Absolutely. I love Anthony Richardson on that part. That being said, he played 4 games last year, 3.5 really. He got knocked out early in the 4th. He played 1 playoff team, and that was Houston. His stats in that game: 6 for 10 passing, 56 yards. And running the ball, 3 carries, 35 yards, 2 touchdowns running the ball, which is great. But not what you want to see from a guy that you are if you're drafting him, he's probably your QB1. Because he's going right now, his ADP is QB 8. That is far too risky. I have not seen enough. Could he be a guy? He averaged 0.73 fantasy points per dropback. To put that in perspective, Josh Allen averaged 0.63 last year and was a comfortable QB1. So yes, if we're assuming full health, he's playing every snap, all those games extrapolate, and he, rushes for an average of 1 rushing touchdown per game and is, in the 150 to 250 passing yards a game with a touchdown, that can play. But we've seen him play 3.5 games. There's no way I'm making an early investment on this guy. I have him as quarterback 12, and I think that's a little bit generous because it's a total unknown. Like, would you rather have Anthony Richardson or Brock Purdy?
I mean, my thing is, like you said, the steady thing. And also, I want to go back to Anthony Richardson. I'm an SEC football guy. He wasn't that good of a passer at Florida either. I mean, I think he could play like low 50-something%.
He was 59.5 last year, but that was 32nd in the NFL at that time. So like completion percentage, certainly an issue. One other thing I'd point to is he averaged 6.9 yards per attempt, which is low. Like you look at Will Levis, I think was over 10, which is way too high. But like NFL average is like in the mid sevens, like 7.7 around. So he's not exactly bombing the ball down the field all the time. He certainly will have some deep balls that are going to be completed, but like that's not his game, or that's not what they did last year at least. So you're getting a low completion percentage, low yards per attempt, a couple red flags running. The running is great, and hopefully he stays healthy and he turns into a top 5 quarterback. We're talking about, him headlining this show next year. But I'm going to pump the brakes on that. We have seen nowhere close to enough, and I am not going to risk my team on the QB1 that I have to select, probably in the 5th or 6th round, completely faltering.
Yeah, I agree word for word. The one thing he does I have going for my like is Shane Steichen is a great play caller.
Yep.
And love what he did with Jalen Hurts. So I think he's got the right guy calling plays. And I also think there's a world here where Richardson goes off and is really good and then just gets hurt week 11. Like kind of like you're saying, it's very similar to Lamar concerns.
Yeah.
Where like he could be really good in the regular season, but when you get to week 15 and it's playoff time, he could be out. And I think that's a real concern because like part of being a good fantasy owner is, preparing yourself for success in the playoffs. So
absolutely,
there's just too much. Love the upside, but there's just so many other safe options. I just don't think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, a couple guys that are in that range as far as ADP are a couple of the rookies. So we got. Or I wouldn't even say in that range, but kind of a notch below. Caleb Williams right now is ADP quarterback 15. Jaden Daniels is ADP 17. JJ McCarthy obviously just underwent knee surgery. He's not going to be playing. Bo Nix is not at this point draftable in fantasy. He could certainly have a good year, but as far as early August, he's not a guy that is going to be generating much fantasy buzz outside of very deep super flex leagues.
Like number 3 quarterback.
Yes, for sure. How do you see these rookie quarterbacks faring? Obviously, Caleb, Drake May, Jaden Daniels.
Drake May, total no draft. I've got a no draft on. If you're on the New England Patriots, you're not even getting considered to be drafted by me because I think their offense is going to be that bad. All right, I love Jaden Daniels. I've got him QB 12, and I mean I might put him ahead of Richardson. I've got him like right there, and I'm gonna tell you why. There's a bunch of reasons. First of all, you've got the rushing value with him. He ran for 1,200 yards at LSU last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw him. I know it's preseason, but he walked in on his own read in his first preseason game and drive.
Yep, he looked great in that game.
No, he can run. But the thing is, I obviously watch a lot of LSU football, and shout out my good friend Joe Sloan was his quarterback coach in LSU and hoped to help develop him. When Jaden Daniels got to LSU 2 years ago, he looked at one read and took off running. Last year, he won the Heisman Trophy with one of the greatest seasons ever in college football. He can get to his 3rd read, his 4th read before he runs. And so he's got the skill set that plays in the NFL because he's not going to just key on one receiver and take off running. And he could run for, I don't know, if he stays healthy, I mean, a realistic thing, I mean, he could run for 800 or 900 yards. And if he runs for 5 to 8 touchdowns, the dude can chunk it. And then also another factor, the Commanders are the worst defense in pro football. I mean, yeah, Dan Quinn might make it a little better, but I think their games could get buck wild. Mm-hmm. Cliff Kingsbury's calling plays, which means even more wide open. I don't think the weapons are bad if Dotson can stay on the field, McLaurin, the Eckler-Robinson running back combo. I think Daniels could have a hell of a season. My only concern with him is he's 6'3", and he didn't do the best job protecting himself from hits in college football. Mm-hmm. And obviously when you get in the NFL, you got to slide, you got to protect yourself. But having said that, I mean, the dude's an elite thrower, and he can run, and he's on a team that is going to be playing higher-scoring games. So I love him, and I've got him at QB 12, but, like, talking out the Richardson-Daniels thing, I'm much more likely to have Daniels on my team than Richardson.
Yeah, I love the potential of the rookie quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, obviously we got Hard Knocks going, ton of buzz. We are living in Chicago. Everyone's excited about Caleb Williams. I get it. PFT, huge Commanders fan. Jaden Daniels, a lot of buzz. LSU, you and Megan are, going crazy over Jaden Daniels. I get it. For fantasy purposes, I'm not putting these guys in the top 13. Like, I'm not taking either of them over. I'm not taking either of them over Trevor Lawrence, like an established like guy who's going to chunk it down the field. Like, I think people are a little bit spoiled as far as what we just saw out of C.J. Stroud from rookie quarterbacks. Like this guy, 4,100 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks. Great season. Ran the ball a little bit, 167 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Great season. From fantasy numbers, like C.J. Stroud was not a top 10 fantasy quarterback. And I understand Jaden Daniels represents a lot more rushing value than C.J. Stroud. Caleb Williams too. I would just pump the brakes a bit. I think a great season for Jaden Daniels would be 20 touchdowns, 10 picks, 700-800 yards rushing, 5 rushing touchdowns. That would be a great season. And that would certainly put him, right around the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks, but I'm not ready to put him there just yet because I'm putting that as his ceiling. So I think drafting him there might be tough. I have Jaden Daniels personally, quarterback 20. He's going 17 right now in ADP. Where do you stand on these guys, Moody?
Daniels is the only rookie quarterback that I will consider drafting. I'm not there on Caleb Williams just yet, but Daniels, and this is a point that I like to make a lot. I love quarterbacks that have terrible defenses because there's a lot of points late.
That's
and
a lot of my deck
really
argument,
do think that Jaden Daniels is going to pick up a ton of second half points in games. The legs are going to be there. They should be there. I agree with Mintz about, worry about him protecting himself. But I love the situation that he's in. He's got 2 decent receivers on the outside. McLaurin, Dotson probably returns to form with a good quarterback that can throw a deep ball here. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I like Daniels. He's the only rookie quarterback that I would take. I have him right behind Richardson, right there at like 13.
Okay.
And I would definitely take Daniels over Richardson just because he's going to go deeper in the draft. I can stack other players up and then take a chance on Daniels. So that's I like him. He's the only rookie quarterback I would consider.
Why do you not like Caleb Williams?
This is the worst. This is going to be. It has nothing to do with football. I watched Caleb Williams swing a baseball bat and try and hit a baseball, and it was one of the worst things I've ever seen. And because of that, it just.
He's not making your home run parlay?
No, he's not making our home run parlay. Something about it just didn't sit well with me, and it's stupid. It has nothing to do with football whatsoever. I love the weapons around him. I really do. There's tons of hype. I mean, like he seems to be a good guy. All this stuff. But bro, I don't know. It's just I'm gonna be sitting, waiting, watching.
I just want
we'll
that
see
quote
what happens
card,
with Caleb
bro.
Williams.
I don't know.
I'm not there though.
Williams. All right, I have Caleb Williams a little bit higher. I think he represents not the type of rushing upside that Jaden Daniels does, but I think he can certainly move. I put him in like I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, like throwing on the field. Like he has the arm angles. I think he's going to be similar to Mahomes as far as rushing. Patrick Mahomes rushing, consistent. 300 rushing yards a year. Like, that's what you're getting. A couple rushing touchdowns. I think Caleb Williams will do that on the ground, so I think that'll buoy his floor a little bit. Daniels, too, but I'm not expecting 30 touchdowns out of Caleb Williams. I think a good year also for him would be like 20 touchdowns and, 15 interceptions. I think that would be good for Caleb Williams.
I got Williams at 15, just behind Daniels at 12. But the thing about Williams you do got to consider, and I know they do have weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, although Keenan Allen showed up kind of large in training camp, I didn't like he's definitely overweight right now. But with Adunze from Washington is a stud. I know how much you love DJ Moore, and I've always loved DJ Moore too. I mean, he's somehow been a number 1 receiver in the NFL with like the worst collection of passers maybe ever, and he finally has a good guy. You got 3 good receivers. Cole Kmet's a solid tight end. You got DeAndre Swift and Herbert, solid running game. So, look, I think Caleb Williams is going to be solid. Like I said, I got him number 15 in a 2-quarterback, a super flex league, solid QB2.
Yep. Let's talk about the guy who's formerly quarterback number 12 as far as the jersey, number 8 now. He's going to finally be playing snaps for the Jets after tearing his Achilles week 1. Such a bummer. Aaron Rodgers. Where do you guys have Rodgers ranked? I assume he's not going to be a QB1 for you guys, but where do you think he is draftable? Because this is a guy who's former MVP, can sling it absolutely with the best of them still, but where do you have him ranked for fantasy purposes?
Okay, I'm going to go with I'll go ahead and say it. I've got him 14th.
Okay.
My thing with him, look, I think he's an awesome quarterback. I think he's one of the best players to ever throw a football. Jets got an elite defense. They got Breece Hall running the ball. They do have some weapons, and Garrett Wilson could break out this year. But I just think it's kind of similar to a situation in Green Bay where he could be a better quarterback in real life than fantasy, and I don't know if we're getting 350 or 400-yard games here. And he's not going to run at all.
Will not.
Will not. And so I think you're going to be seeing a lot of like 250-yard, 2-touchdown, no-pick games where they win. But I don't know if it's the best thing to fantasy. And then going back to his Green Bay career, I believe the most yards he ever threw for is a little over 4,200 in a season. I mean, like, look, elite quarterback, one of the best that have ever done it, almost 40 years old, coming off a torn Achilles. And like I said, the Jets, I think, are going to try to run the ball, play defense, and be balanced. So I think he could be good. I think the Jets can make the playoffs. I just don't think it's a spot that's conducive to like a top 5 or top 10 fantasy quarterback situation.
His passing yardage career high is 46-43.
Okay,
that was in 2011. So he has not eclipsed 4,500 yards in 12 years. Tough. I mean, his last couple of years, 4,400, 4,000, 4,300, 4,100. 3,700. So take that for what it's worth. Moody, where do you stand on Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I got Rodgers at like 20. Great real life quarterback, not as good for fantasy anymore. Obviously he's got good weapons on the outside and Breece Hall in the backfield. So it's going to be a good season for the Jets. I just don't think from a fantasy perspective, Aaron Rodgers is the guy that you want, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have him right around there. I have him at QB 19. I have him one above Jaden Daniels. I just like the consistent, like you're not going to get 80-yard, 1 touchdown, 2-pick performances from Aaron Rodgers. I think the passing yardage will buoy him. You're going to get absolutely nothing on the ground. Absolutely nothing. But his he's going to have about 200 yards a game. He'll probably throw about 2 touchdowns a game. And, hopefully you don't get an interception. He doesn't throw many interceptions. And I think that's healthy enough to be a very fine QB2 in Superflex leagues. I don't think he's a guy, if you're in a 1 QB league, you're going to want to put in your starting lineup very often. More of a bye week replacement. But I think he's fine for a low-end QB2 who's very consistent. You're just not going to get the giant booms out of him. So like in a best ball league or something like that, he is not a guy I would target at all.
Yeah, and again, when you're talking about where we're talking about the QB things, I mean, the guys he's going around, Tua, who led the NFL in passing last year, Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta, Justin Herbert, I guess, there, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff. I mean, a lot of these guys are better options.
All right, let's talk about breakouts. Who is a guy that you like to break out this year from the quarterback position? Mintzy, I'll start with you.
Well, we already kind of hit on mine because I'm on this Jaden Daniels train hard. Okay. The other one I want to mention, I don't want to mention it because I'm going to let Moody talk about the one he likes so much. Okay. It's the same guy. But I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels, and I want to come back. I know we already discussed him a lot, so I'll keep this extremely brief. The last thing I want to mention, look, I know college football is a totally different game from the NFL, but the season, like, people don't realize LSU's offense last year was as good as the 19 offense that everybody remembers of Chase and Jefferson. Yep. They allowed like 40-something points. They were 110th in defense. Mm-hmm. They literally lost. They lost 2 games where they scored high, like they scored 49 points at Ole Miss and lost. And I feel like people don't understand that's how good Daniels was last year, and you have the running factor. And he's about to turn 24 years old. So that's mine, and I know I'm repeating it. And
you have him at what, 12?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Moody, who you got?
I've got Kyler Murray to break out. I know he's not a young guy anymore, but he's healthy. And in the second half of last season, he finally returned to form as far as throwing the football. We know he's got the legs. We know he can make some plays. But his weapons around him just got much better. Marvin Harrison Jr. appears to be a stud. I mean, I really don't see anything that you don't like about Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point. They added Zay Jones. They've got Dortch. The weapons are okay. Trey McBride, by the way, second half of the season with Kyler Murray, 66 catches down the stretch over the last 10 games. I mean, really impressive stuff. So they started to form a relationship, and I really think the biggest factor here with Kyler Murray is this. They're going to have the worst defense in the NFL, and he is going to put up a ton of yards and points late in contests. If you are taking Kyler Murray, you are taking him as much for the rushing ability as the garbage time points that he's going to put up. And these are the kind of quarterbacks that you get at value a lot of times because Kyler Murray's not the sexy name anymore. Everybody's kind of forgotten about him, and I think you're going to find a lot of value in a guy like Kyler Murray.
Okay, I like that.
I have one quick 20-second thing to add. The other one, I don't know if it's a breakout. I really like Joe Burrow to bounce back this year. People are forgetting about him because he's had a lot of injuries. I love that he showed up with the Slim Shady haircut to camp. Both Chase and Higgins have contract issues and a lot to prove right now. And I think you're going to get a big bounce back effort from Burrow. I'm not saying that's a breakout, but
where do you have him ranked?
I've got him number 6.
Okay. I'm 8 on Burrow. I have him 1 below Stroud, just above Jordan Love. The health worries me. I also feel like he's so good. He's great. I want to see him like be available for a full season and put it together. Finished QB 25 last year. Obviously, injuries had a lot to do with it. He had the calf injury to start the year, just completely kind of put him out to dry. All right, my breakout guy is, I could give you guys an hour. I don't think you're going to guess this guy. I am not, he's not in my top 10. He's not in my top 15. But I am higher on him than industry. He's going right now as QB 24. Second-year guy. His name is Will Levis. And I really like him to be a solid QB2. Superflex leagues, I'm absolutely targeting this guy late. I think if you're in a 1 QB league, he should be like a late round target as well as a guy who can fill in for a bye or could have like spike weeks. So a couple reasons I like him. Last year, 20% of his throws were downfield. He led the league in yards per attempt, I believe, at right around 10.7. They played a lot of 2 wide receiver sets, bombing it down the field with Derrick Henry in the backfield. Didn't have a very good offensive line, and the receivers, DeAndre Hopkins was all right last year, but outside of that, did not have a lot. Cheah Okonkwo, tight end, that's your one of your go-to guys, not great. They upgraded a lot this season. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is back. Calvin Ridley. They got Tyler Boyd. They're going to be playing a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. They're going to make it a lot more favorable for the quarterback. He can move. He didn't rush for kind of what I would have liked to have seen last year, but he absolutely can run. He's got wheels, and I expect his yards per attempt to go down, but it to be a lot more favorable and easier completions. You got Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears as guys as running backs who can catch the ball. I don't think he's another guy. I don't think he's going to be in the MVP conversation. I don't think any of it. But what I think about is, and I think this is a good comparison, a couple of years ago, Daniel Jones, when he had the year where he ran a bunch and he got, easy completions and he had a fine passing touchdown year. I think Will Levis is going to be probably around 24-ish touchdowns, maybe 12 to 15 picks, but I think he can rush for 500 yards, 400 yards. I think he can be kind of in that category, and I think they're going to be behind a lot. I don't think Tennessee is going to be a very good team, but I think he's going to be having to throw the ball a lot, and I think they're going to want to throw the ball a lot, and their offensive line is improved. We've seen one preseason game. J.C. Latham looks like the absolute real deal. They also got Lloyd Cushenberry, so I like Tennessee to be improved in the passing game, and I like it to be because of Will Levis and coaching, complete coaching overhaul, which is going to do him some favors.
I will say the Callahan coaching hire, the Bengals offensive coordinator. Yep. What impressed me the most about him was the Jake Browning thing last year, because everybody's Burrow's like an MVP candidate, he was healthy, blah blah blah. They ended up still going 9-8 after it was like when Burrow went down, it was like they're done, they're going to go 5-12, whatever. And Browning was slinging it, which I definitely didn't see. And he brought Tyler Boyd, he brought him with him. Yep. And but my only concern that I want to bring up is just D-Hop already being out 4 to 6 weeks going into the year with him being
Certainly.
And he's 32, 33. Do you think Calvin Ridley can catch some bombs here?
Calvin Ridley was good. Jacksonville tried to re-sign him. It's not like they're like, oh, this guy stinks, let him walk. Jacksonville absolutely put forth an effort to try and get him back, and he chose Tennessee. So I don't think this is an issue where Calvin Ridley doesn't have it anymore. I think Will Levis is going to be playing. I mean, this is his second year. He's going to be playing with a far upgraded supporting cast. If he was going to just hand the ball off to Derrick Henry, like Ryan Tannehill would do, you could run that offense. But if you're not going to do that, Derrick Henry didn't have the year anyone really expected from him last season, where he saw a huge drop in production and also carries. Will Levis, I think, is primed to take a step forward. And I think in a 1 QB league, he's a guy that's going to go undrafted a lot. I think you can pick him up on waivers. Superflex leagues, absolutely target this guy late and thank me later.
I like it.
All right, now on the other side of that, who is a bust for you at the quarterback position?
This is a real common one this year, and it's another thing where I think he's still going to be a real good life quarterback, but I think Justin Herbert's a bust in fantasy this year. And
already banged up.
Yeah, well, already banged up. Just the changes, a lot of changes in LA. Love the Harbaugh hire. Love it. But you're going to come in and see a different, you think of the Chargers, you think of these wide open shootouts, you think of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler, all are gone. You've got a receiving core. I like Ladd McConkey, as a late PPR guy.
Yep.
But the rest of their receiving core is like Josh Palmer, DJ Shark.
Yeah.
They've got a new offense. Greg Roman now calling plays there, who I always loved with Kaepernick and San Fran, and he was the Ravens OC. But what does Greg Roman teams do? They run the ball. They're going to be physical. They're going to run the football. And so Herbert could have like a good season and they could be a winning team, but it's just not going to be the wide open thing anymore. And as you mentioned, him already being out when he's learning a totally new offense ain't good.
Yeah. And
especially when he's got a receiving core to build chemistry with. I'm going to be betting unders in Chargers games early in the year. And I'm just, like I said, Herbert, they might win 10 games and make the wild card. He's just not going to be a good fantasy quarterback this year.
Yeah. Where do you have him ranked?
Like 19.
Okay. All right, Moody, who do you got as a bust?
Oh, my bust. You may not want to hear this, Cheah. I've got Baker Mayfield. I don't think there's any way that he can play to the level that he played to last year. Mike Evans is 1 year older, and I know he's been
1,000 yards. Mark it down.
I freaking love Mike Evans. Don't get me wrong. I love him. He's one of my favorite wide receivers to ever play the game. But eventually, he's going to start to slow down. He's now hit that 30-year mark. I thought that Mayfield played over his head in certain points. He's going to add nothing on the ground for you. I mean, he doesn't do much there.
Yep.
I feel a slight regression coming for Baker Mayfield. I don't know if it's a complete bust here, but I think from a fantasy perspective, Mayfield's a guy that I'm going to steer away from. And I mean, there's another obvious one here. It's Bryce Young, but I don't think anybody even has him on their radar.
Where do you have Baker ranked?
I have Baker at 21.
I actually have Baker at 21 too. His ADP is 21. I don't think that is accurate. He did finish as QB 10 last year in 4-point passing touchdown leagues. So certainly, I think what I will point to with Baker, and this is not me being down on Baker because I'm a Bucs fan. I am pretty high on Baker going into this year. The one thing about the Bucs that you're going to see a big change in is running the football with efficiency. They absolutely could not do that. I think the coaches were good. As far as Dave Canales was the offensive coordinator, we had Harold Goodwin as the offensive line coach and run game coordinator. This is nothing against them because they won a Super Bowl with Harold Goodwin, and I think Harold Goodwin is a good coach. But the numbers don't lie as far as their efficiency. They're always towards the bottom of the league, and I expect Carolina to be this in running the football. Dave Canales brought Goodwin Co. over to Carolina. I think this is going to be a much more efficient and aggressive running football team. I think they're going to get a lot of chunk plays, and I think they're going to run the ball a lot more with efficiency. That being said, that's not good for Baker Mayfield fantasy numbers, so I am actually totally fine with that. I don't take offense to that. I think that is totally going to be the same ranking on Baker, and I don't think that that's a bad ranking.
The one thing about Baker's career, it's been so up and down, but remember he won that playoff game in Cleveland, and everybody was convinced he was good, and then he just fell off a cliff.
I think he's a good
all
quarterback.
Over the map, and right when everybody thinks he's good, I'm concerned.
He did get a 3-year, $100 million deal. In his presser, he was talking about he plays the best when he's comfortable, and he is now comfortable in Tampa. Obviously, having set up his family, he just had a kid. Has a house in Tampa, and now they are settled and good. Have his contract, family emerging, set with offensive line. Offensive coordinator Liam Cohen is the guy from the Rams who got him basically set up and to win a Monday Night Football game despite being signed on Tuesday. So he is familiar with that offense and he can do things. That being said, fantasy wise, I don't know if you're going to see the types of fantasy numbers you were, because I just think they're going to run the ball a lot. The guy I have as a bust, we talked about him already, Anthony Richardson. I just don't see him being as high as he should be. Again, he's going ADP 8. That is far too rich for me for a completely unknown commodity. 3.5 games. I mean, was it Matt Flynn who had that 6-touchdown game with Green Bay, against Detroit,
Matt Flynn made so
week
much
17.
Money that week 17 game that he made. I mean, the amount of money he made the rest of his career.
And it's different because Seattle signs him to a big deal. They draft Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, and everyone thinks Matt Flynn is going to get the job, and then Russell Wilson just outplays him. That's obviously not the case with Anthony Richardson. They invested a top 5 pick in him. You have to pay him like a top 5 pick because the draft slots are capped. He is going to play. Can he be healthy? I'm just worried about the sample size is what I'm concerned. I'm comparing it to Matt Flynn. 3.5 games, never passed for over 225 yards, never rushed for more than 60 yards. The rushing touchdowns are great. They're great. I love them. I need to see more to invest a top, 6-7 round pick in this guy. I cannot do it right now. He might end up being a top 5 quarterback. Absolutely might. Way too risky for me. You want to diversify risk. This is not the way to do it with Anthony Richardson. All right, That was our quarterback preview. That was a fun show.
Dude,
I love
just
talking
being
ball with you
back.
guys.
Just love being back, man.
Love being back. Shout out to DraftKings, the only sports book, the best sports book. The only one we use at Barstool Sports, the absolute best. You'll see some fun stuff on us from there coming soon. But this is a quarterback preview. Stay tuned next Thursday for our running back preview. Going to be a lot of fun. And then receivers and tight ends coming the week after that. And then we'll get into all the DFS stuff weekly with you guys. Hopefully you're along for us with this journey. For Moody, Mintzy, I'm Stephen Cheah. Thanks for watching.
The crown is yours.